The movie commences amidst the stunning desert landscapes of a picturesque planet, where an 8-person team of astronauts is stationed for the Aurora Mars Mission 2. Initially slated for a 6-month duration, the mission unfolds on the barren terrain with specialized vehicles designed to withstand the harsh weather conditions. As they navigate the vast expanse, astronauts Vincent and Rebecca brace themselves for an approaching sandstorm, preparing to traverse blindly until it dissipates. Amidst the impending storm, concern arises as it threatens their base, particularly affecting fellow astronaut Kim's plans. Despite Vincent's attempt to ease the tension, it's evident that his unease stems from more than just the impending sandstorm. After weathering the storm, Vincent and Rebecca encounter Kim collecting samples, where tensions flare as Kim rebuffs their attempts to assist her. As they rendezvous back at base, Vincent humorously lists things he'll miss about Mars, mostly revolving around Kim, eliciting a smile from Rebecca. However, Kim's discontent becomes apparent as she laments the lack of significant discoveries during their mission duration. Amidst their return preparations, Vincent is summoned to assist Richard in restoring the base's systems for stable communication with the Aurora. Despite brief contact with the approaching ship, power outages persist, plunging the base into darkness and heightening the suspense as they await their impending departure back to Earth. While researching a sample, Marco seizes an opportunity to return outside under the guise of checking the malfunctioning gamma sensors, suggesting they might have been damaged by the storm. With the pretext established, Charles grants permission for Marco to go, insisting he brings Richard along. Meanwhile, inside the base, tensions rise as Vincent, Rebecca, and Kim return, the latter expressing frustration at being recalled despite Marco and Richard's imminent departure. As Marco and Richard prepare to venture outside, Marco discreetly instructs Richard to ready equipment for sample collection, withholding from Charles the discovery of a molecular anomaly. Back inside, Vincent attempts to repair the damaged transmission, lamenting to a teammate about the missed opportunity to communicate with his daughter, a situation exacerbated by Kim's actions. Amidst the turmoil, Kim confronts Charles, alleging Marco's deceptive intentions and delving into his private logs in search of incriminating evidence. Amidst the chaos, Lauren intervenes, attempting to defuse the situation. Kim's suspicions intensify, leading her to scrutinize Marco's findings under a microscope, revealing a startling discovery: life on the planet. Convinced of the significance of their discovery, Kim insists on the team's collective involvement in the research, casting doubt on Marco's integrity. Marco, now under scrutiny, attempts to communicate with Richard, initiating a chain of events that will further unravel the mysteries of their mission. As Richard recounts Marco's ill-fated expedition, Charles cautions against further interference with the site. Suddenly, a sinkhole engulfs Marco, prompting Richard's frantic call for help. Upon arrival, Charles and Lauren are devastated by Marco's disappearance, with Lauren volunteering to remain at the site while the crew organizes a rescue effort. Back at the base, shock and grief grip the crew, except for Kim, who remains focused on the mission. Mission Control offers condolences and approval for recovery efforts. Vincent and Charles return to the site, but their attempts to contact Lauren prove futile. Vincent descends into the hole, encountering strange, thread-like growths before a panic attack forces his retreat. Upon resurfacing, Vincent reveals his findings, including the absence of their colleagues. Robert's discovery of footprints leads the crew back to base, where Charles orders preparations for possible casualties. As they monitor Marco and Lauren's return, Richard is shocked by Marco's disfigured state. In a horrifying turn, Marco attacks Richard with a drill before the distress signal is raised. Kim encounters another zombified creature, once her colleague Lauren, and attempts to flee, only to find herself pursued relentlessly. Kim valiantly fights against the zombies, urging Vincent to stay outside while Charles confronts the situation inside. As chaos ensues, Charles sacrifices himself to buy time for Kim to escape, ultimately falling victim to the creatures. Once outside, Kim sabotages the door to prevent their pursuit. Robert, traumatized by the events, expresses a desire to leave, overwhelmed by the continuous losses. Meanwhile, alarms signal the breach of the base by the zombies, prompting the survivors to seek refuge in the dome. Meanwhile, in the lab, Rebecca analyzes a sample from Charles' wound, discovering a troubling infection coursing through his bloodstream, teeming with live organisms. With the situation growing increasingly dire, the team braces for the next harrowing phase of their struggle for survival. Upon realizing the bacteria's potential, Rebecca devises a plan to utilize the stored antibiotics as a weapon against the zombies. Injecting Charles with antibiotics, they observe a moment of convulsion before his body becomes still. A subsequent blood test reveals the bacteria's diminished activity, hinting at a potential weapon against the zombies. Meanwhile, Kim and Robert lure a zombie into a pressurized chamber, administering antibiotics in gas form. However, Rebecca notes the bacteria's resistance to the antibiotics, initiating its multiplication once again. As Vincent attempts to contact Aurora, he encounters Richard, who has succumbed to infection and attacks him viciously. Fleeing back to the dome, Vincent alerts the others, but Richard follows, threatening their safety. In a desperate attempt to contain the threat, Kim throws antibiotics at Richard only to be overwhelmed by the zombie. Robert, fearing for his own safety, locks Kim in the lab, abandoning her to confront the escalating crisis. As Rebecca and Vincent encounter another infected colleague, they are forced to flee, ultimately finding themselves stranded midway. With their vehicle malfunctioning and Rebecca potentially infected, tensions rise among the remaining survivors. Robert, displaying self-preservation, abandons Rebecca and Vincent, stealing the vehicle and leaving them behind. Determined to evade the pursuing zombies, Rebecca and Vincent drive into the oncoming storm, hoping to obscure their tracks. As they face the looming threat of the undead, their survival hinges on their ability to outmaneuver the relentless pursuit. Upon awakening the next day, Vincent finds himself alone in the rover, realizing that Rebecca has left him behind, fearing she may harm him. Determined to find her, Vincent follows her tracks and discovers her nearby. Rebecca warns him of her inability to control her transformation, urging him to stay away. Despite his efforts to restrain her, Rebecca removes her helmet, succumbing to the harsh Martian environment. Devastated by her death, Vincent mourns his fallen friend before suddenly witnessing Rebecca's transformation into a zombie. In a desperate struggle for survival, Vincent overpowers her and ends her suffering with a large rock. Continuing on foot to the landing site, Vincent receives transmissions from the Aurora team, alerting him to the impending zombie threat. Racing to warn his colleagues, Vincent arrives to a scene of chaos and carnage as the zombies attack. With no other options, Vincent boards the ship and confronts Robert, determined to prevent the spread of the infection. In a fierce battle, Vincent manages to incapacitate Robert and ejects him into space, but not before a drop of infected blood lands on his face, raising fears of his own infection. With no certainty of rescue and the threat of spreading the infection to Earth looming over him, he makes a grim decision. Vincent resolves to sacrifice himself to prevent further harm. He explains to Mission Control that he can use the remaining fuel to exit orbit and burn up in the atmosphere, ensuring a swift and decisive end.